What's up, everyone? Welcome back. It's your boy Mr. Totem again, and for another Veteranos Corner, I want to talk about some stuff that actually kind of intersects between graffiti and everyday normal civilian squares life. All right, and you know, a lot of times people ask, you know, hey man, like, and this is a strange one. I don't know if you guys have ever had this before, but you know, what does your mom and your dad think about you doing graffiti? You know? And honestly, you know, me being a father now, I've done a lot of reflecting on what got me here over the years, right? And how life has brought me to this point. And I think about what my mother and my father probably thought of how their son ended up like this, because ultimately my mom and my dad know I am a graffiti writer, all right? And you know, I think the difficulty as far as my life went was the fact that my mother and my father, they came from another country, all right? And they came to the great country of America to find a better life than where they're from. My mom is from the Philippines and my dad is from Iran, right? And, you know, my mother came here as became a registered nurse, and my father became a mechanical engineer, right? And that was their profession. And they were very smart people, very studious, and it was a time during the late 70s, early 80s, when they viewed the proper way of living a normal life, a citizen's life, is to get a good job. You know, you go to school, you graduate, you get a good job, and then you basically become a professional of whatever you studied in your studies, right? Well, you know, I was basically groomed to do the same, all right? And you know, it's difficult sometimes when I think about it, because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, the way I look at it is that I don't think as a person, right? And you have to think about this for yourself, right? You got to know who you are a little bit, right? You got to spend the time and decide whether you're going to be what your parents program or what you want to be. So my mom, she really was like the higher achiever of her whole family, all right? Coming from the Philippines. She was really the one who, she got the scholarship, she got the backing from, you know, impressed people in the Philippines to help get her here to America to go and graduate from Emory University. And that's what she did. She became, you know, the only person in, like, God, her whole neighborhood to actually like become a professional at anything. And, you know, she came to this country and she basically, how do you say it? You know, she like set a precedent for her whole family back home. Like, she basically made a way for people from our family to come to America and become nurses or become doctors or become any of those things, which only she did. But you know, my other cousin might have got somewhere in nursing a little bit, but mostly my mom is the one who made it, her and her sister. Her sister in the Philippines and my mom here in America. So my mom's opinion of how schooling should be was ultra serious. ultra serious. My father, his was a similar way, but engineering and the certain amount of logical thinking sometimes I think maybe deviate with just the straight, well, follow the script and that's it. He said if it doesn't make sense, then it doesn't make sense to do it. But he also felt very strongly about schooling and things like that, right? And he didn't necessarily have a huge expectation for me to be an engineer or things of that nature, but I'm pretty sure he, especially for the time, let's say this is what, 1980, maybe 81. I think he's expecting his son to be kind of at least along the lines that he went, because it worked for him. He became a professional engineer for this large firm here, and he did fairly well for himself at first until he got hurt, which unfortunately led my mother and my father to having difficulties in their marriage, which eventually led to them being estranged. And then a lot of bad things happened in 1984 where we ended up becoming bankrupt, and they ended up foreclosing on our house, which in turn basically led me and my father and my mother split, and led me and my mother to basically the hood. We ended up in a low-income housing to try to get on our feet. My mom had to get a place with her friends, and we lived. Actually, she had to get a place with just some random person. I lived with a Korean family that we didn't know, but to pay the rent is the only way to do it. And they had to lick their wounds and get on their feet, which more concretes their mind on you have to do things that will basically be stable and safe. Live a life of where you can do things that are not so risky that you'll lose everything you got, because we lost everything we had. All right, now that was real bad, y'all. I'll tell you, I was fairly old enough to understand a good portion of what was going on around me, because at one point in time I had a yard, and there was we had a garage, and our house wasn't attached to nobody. We had multiple rooms. I had my own little room, and I got to be pretty comfortable as far as that was. And then like the world had just come apart at the seams, and we ended up moving to an apartment that was low income, where it was, we were sharing a room, me and my mama, and there's another family in another room of the house, of the apartment, that I don't know them, and we see each other in the kitchen or something like that, or dumb thing, like I'll mistakenly eat something in the refrigerator that's theirs, and they're mad at me, and I don't know that really like difficulties that I can understand would lead my mom and my father to think like, look, you need to have a job or a career that don't let you feel this, and I can respect that. I can respect that a lot. I went through, and this is a personal thing about me. I went through everything it took to be in the medical field when I got towards my high school times. I wasn't very good in school, but I took it serious when my mom wanted me to be in the medical field. I did well in the testing. I actually I shadowed nurses and stuff like that. I ended up basically being like what's like similar to an intern or whatever at Crawford Long Hospital. And, you know, my mom had an expectation of me becoming a doctor. And all of the precursors of what I was going to do was set up to do that. And, you know, in the 9th hour, essentially the 9th hour, I bailed. I stopped. I didn't want to do it. And I'll tell you why. So if you are going to set out to do something for yourself, it's, you know, my mom and my dad, when they came to this country, this is what they set themselves out to do, right? They said to themselves, like this is my challenge. I want to get on an airplane, fly to this other country, take on the challenge of establishing myself and being someone, not being a bum, not being a loser, not being a freeloader, and come to this country and be something on their own strength, on their own muscles. And that's what they did. My father, my mother, they did that, and I very much commend them for doing that. It takes balls. It takes balls to be able to do something like that. But that wasn't my fight. You know, that wasn't my challenge. That wasn't what I chose. You know, that's what they chose. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I think I have a little flame inside me, right? Well, I know I do, but like definitely had one when I was young that felt that the challenge of being my own person, it needs, the terms need to be, you know, written by me. Like, it can't be written by my mother, it can't be written by my father, all right? It's an Asian way, okay? An Asian way is the expectation of the child to follow what the parent has established. And, you know, I didn't want to do that. So what happened was, you know, my mom was real, she was hard on me, you know, because once we fell to ruin, in a sense, everything became pronounced. You know, a bill became pronounced. If the car's brakes needed to be changed, the idea of how much a brake job cost. I remember my mom used to freak out over the idea when the brakes would squeak and stuff like that. So, oh my God, the brakes is going to be $10,000. She used to say some crazy stuff to a young me that our car is, we're either going to pay $10,000 for brakes, or we're going to fly and careen off into a ravine somewhere and die because the brakes started squeaking a little bit. Not even grinding, squeaking, okay? And it used to put a fear into me. Y'all wouldn't believe it, man. It used to put a fear into me about brakes. Of all things, because my father wasn't around to teach me, oh, that's just brakes. I don't want to worry about that. No, I don't know what the fuck brakes are. Is what makes the car stop, right? But as you can see the cars behind me, I know brakes now. And I learned it wasn't no goddamn $10,000, all right? So I was implanted with insecurities and stuff like that she had, you know? I didn't even set that on myself. It's not like I failed and found out for myself, oh shoot, that cost me $10,000. I ain't never gonna do that again. I better not, you know, no, it's shit, that. So, you know, a lot of that, right? I just found myself having to make an agreement, all right? And the agreement was, weirdly was, with myself, I was already writing graffiti at this time. You know, while I was doing the medical studies and all this, I started writing graffiti. I was writing graffiti for a while, and I started to get really good at it. I started to get really known in Atlanta. I started to seek out, you know, doing little jobs here and there, like doing graffiti. Nothing big, nothing like what you know, people learn. And then I met Tat's crew. I was 16, all right? And when I met Tat's crew, they had came to Atlanta, or they actually had reached out to someone here in Atlanta. And by that time, at 16 years old, I was already one of the people that was mentioned in this city as one of the best, you know, from Atlanta. And, you know, they reached out to someone here, and they said, who's the best? Because we have a job to do out there for this company called Coca-Cola. And we're going to do this big thing, and they want a local artist also. And this is 1990, what, 1997, right? Or 1996. Yeah, 1996. And, you know, I get this beep on my beeper. Does that tell you how old, how old it was? I get this 718 number on my beeper, right? And I go to a payphone, and I call the number, and it happens to be Bio from Tat's crew. And Bio wants to meet me. And this is a story for another time to really expound on what this means to find a mentor. But I met up with Bio, BG, and Nicer, and they put me on to this job, this gig. They didn't know me from a can of paint. They never heard of me. New York is so far away from Atlanta, and there was no real internet to find people like that then, okay? Like, different than it is now. When I did the job, I had everything it took. I was already very good at it, and they were like, man, you need to be doing this as a job, as a profession. Matter of fact, you need to move to New York City, and you need to do it with us. Man, that changed my life, y'all. That right there, the thing was, right, when that had happened, prior to that happening, my mom was real rough on me, you know, and she would often, you know, say things to me that weren't exactly like conducive for confidence in taking on a challenge of any form, especially going and starting a new career, right? My mom used to say that I was good for nothing. She would always say that, you know, you're good for nothing, you're good for nothing. And I don't think she meant it, but sure as hell felt like it, right? You know, I never badgered her for money. I never, like, took all that, like, I was, you know, I was a fairly good son, I would guess. But that good for nothing thing, you know, and like as if like my little regular jobs I did, I made some money and stuff like that, little money working, you know, I was a sign painter during the meantime at like a local grocery store and stuff like that. And, you know, I remember I did that job, right? And I came back to my mom, and I had a check, you know, for $11,000, and I showed it to my mom like this. I didn't even say anything. I said, Graffiti got me this. And she looked at it, you know, I mean, she, you know, 16 years old with $11,000, that's like probably like someone right now having like, I don't know, maybe $20,000 or something like that, you know, like some 16-year-old just shows up with that. Where did you make that? Where did you make that? You know? And that right there, just, it shut her up. And not because I wanted to shut my mama up, but it also kind of reaffirmed that, hey man, maybe I don't have to change bedpans, move patients from floor to floor with one of these push carts. Maybe I don't have to, you know, God, all of the things I had previously studied. So it led to the point where the long road which got me to here today. And thank you to Tat's crew, because once they actually had put me on to my confidence to start doing this as a profession, they actually taught me the actual business side of it. And that's, you know, something for another video that I may share with y'all on how to support yourself using your artwork. Because I honestly, and I'm gonna tell y'all, and this is a real big thing with me, I don't believe in starving artists. I don't believe in that term. I've heard of starving doctors before. You know, I mean, the money is at where the demand is at. You know what I mean? So that's a conversation for another time. But as a parent, I go back to the whole point of this conversation. As a parent, how do I feel about my child or your child doing art or graffiti art or street art as a living, as a career? My time, my world is different that I come from. 1995, 1997, whatever. It was a different time. So the establishment of being paid off of your art, especially with graffiti art, it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing at all. Tat's crew is one of the very first people to do those kind of things like that. And they taught me at an early age to support myself. I have not worked a job since, okay? I've literally been my boss 30 some odd years. 30 some odd years because of this. The last time I had a job, you had to apply, and it was a piece of paper you had to walk in. Now I don't even know how they do it now. So my recommendation to you about whether as a parent or what your parents thought, it's really to each his own. And I will say that the most important thing is to understanding your talent and your work ethic. If you are convicted, like if you have discipline, talent, and a work ethic, you know, I got my work ethic from my immigrant parents. That actually served me well over these years, you know. And if you feel like you have those, that your child has those things, then you got a decent chance. Because I know a bunch of people with really good book smart, right? And they have the personality of a hand towel. You know, they don't know how to move forward in life because they just know, okay, what it says in the book, follow that, you know. And this is not, and some people, that's the way to go. That's the way for you to do it. But from my opinion, from my standpoint, if your child or if you as a person, if you feel like your child has a penchant for that, you know, I can understand being reluctant to cultivate it, but I also will say, like, don't push it out of the picture. Get as many of your skills together and try to like make a life out of it. But the true thing is that you know, to this day, right now, me being a parent, you know, my son's, like my oldest son, he's a professional dancer, he's a professional b-boy for Red Bull. And, you know, there's not a lot of people who have ever can do that. And he has that support. And hey, you know, I wasn't no professional dancer, you know, but the skills I had gave him when he was young, it worked. If you have that, then you can do something. Do I want my sons to be doctors or lawyers? You know, as a parent, you want safety for them, but also as a father and a dude who has done it, I don't necessarily want to remove the challenges and the dangers of trying for something bigger and greater than what your expectations are. Okay, what your parents' expectations are. And I think it's because it's a different time now that I can think that way, and you could too. So, yeah, that's what my parents thought of what I became and what I think of as a parent and what I would hope for my children, you know. And, you know, I'll say this. What did my father and what did my mother think after I became what I became? As I stand here, you know, I made it, you know. I did well with the grace of God, thank you. Like, I was able to do what I set out to do. I mean, as you can see, I have, you know, things. This building I own, you know. And you can't, and this is all graffiti, you know, got me here. And my talent, but my work ethic and all that kind of stuff like that, and my drive and my authenticity is what helped me get here. If you think that they have that for yourself, so my mother and my father know and saw and are proud of me for. And my father, you know, he's around more in my life now, and he sees this stuff and he goes, hey, damn, you know, hear from other people who have told him, oh, your son has told him, and you know, and that's something that, like, I feel happy that he can experience that. And my mom the same. She has had people. She's been over the moon about where I've gone with my art. Are you capable of doing that? Probably. Maybe. That's up to you to figure out, okay? I'm no one's judge. I just know that this worked for me. But some of those things that I had said earlier, you need to make sure you have that if you're gonna do that. You can't, I sailed the seas of consequence, y'all. If you set out to do something like that, if you set out to change, you know, and be what you really want to be deep down, you better do the work. You got to do the work. And if as a parent, if I see that my sons have that, I'll support them. So yeah, hopefully that actually give you a little bit of clarity on my opinion on those things. You know what I'm saying? You know, I'm a little bit older now, and I understand a lot of people's worry for their children and different things like that. So, but this is coming from firsthand account from the veterano himself, Mr. Totem. Hopefully y'all got something good out of that. You know, hopefully I'll check you guys out next time. If you liked what I said, you know, make sure you hit me with a like on there, because apparently the likes help out a lot. I need some of those things because everyone does, apparently. But yeah, man, y'all take it easy, all right? Y'all be good. Mr. Totem out. Peace.